There is a story about a mother who was told to throw her newborn son into a river, and she did it, not because she didn't love him, but because she trusted the one who told her to. What happened next is one of the most breathtaking sequences of events in all of human history, a story of tyranny and liberation, of fear and faith, of a man who spoke to Allah directly and still trembled. This is the story of Musa, and it begins with a king who was afraid of a baby. Pharaoh was the most powerful man on earth. He ruled Egypt with absolute authority. His word was law. His palace was a monument to his own ego. He had declared himself a god, and he had enough power to make people believe it. But power, no matter how total, has one weakness: fear. And Pharaoh was afraid. His advisors had delivered a prophecy. A boy would be born among the Banu Israel, the children of Israel, a people Pharaoh had enslaved for generations, and that boy would grow up to destroy his kingdom. Pharaoh's response was immediate and brutal. He ordered the killing of every newborn boy among the Banu Israel, every single one, year after year. A systematic slaughter designed to eliminate a threat before it could take its first breath. He thought he could outmaneuver destiny. He was wrong. Into this world, a woman among the Banu Israel gave birth to a boy. The moment she looked at him, she felt something, a pull toward him that went beyond ordinary maternal love, and alongside that love, terror, because she knew what Pharaoh's soldiers did to boys like her son. But then came something extraordinary. Allah spoke to her heart directly, not through a prophet, not through a messenger, but directly into her soul. Nurse him, and when you fear for him, cast him into the river, and do not fear, and do not grieve. We will return him to you, and make him one of the messengers. It was the most irrational instruction a mother could receive. Throw your child into the river to save him. Trust the water more than you trust your own arms. But she believed. And belief, when it is real, moves people to do things that make no sense from the outside. She built a small basket. She placed her son inside it. She carried him to the banks of the Nile, the great river that ran through the heart of Egypt, the same river Pharaoh believed he owned. And she let go. The basket moved into the current and drifted away. She stood there watching until she couldn't see it anymore. And then she went home with empty arms and a heart held together by nothing but trust in Allah. She told her daughter to follow the basket along the riverbank, to watch from a distance and report back what happened. The river carried the basket directly into the heart of everything dangerous, into the palace grounds of Pharaoh himself. The servants of Pharaoh's wife found the basket. They brought it to her, and when she opened it and looked at the child inside, something happened to her that she hadn't expected. She loved him immediately. "He will be a comfort to my eye and yours," she said to Pharaoh. "Do not kill him. Perhaps he will benefit us, or we may adopt him as a son." And Pharaoh, the man who had ordered the death of thousands of boys, looked at this particular child and let him live. Allah had placed love for Musa in the heart of the very woman married to the man trying to kill him. The baby who was supposed to be thrown into the Nile was now being cradled inside the most protected palace in the world. But the baby needed to be fed, and he refused to nurse from any of the women brought to him. One after another, he turned away. The palace was growing anxious, and then a young girl appeared, Musa's sister, who had been watching from a distance all along, and she stepped forward calmly. "Shall I direct you to a household that will nurse him for you and take care of him?" They agreed. She went home, and Musa's mother was brought to the palace. She held her son again. Allah had promised her he would return him, and he had, not after years, not after suffering, but within hours, back in her arms, inside the palace, being paid to nurse her own child by the very people who wanted him dead. So we restored him to his mother that she might be content and not grieve, and that she would know that the promise of Allah is true. Musa grew up inside Pharaoh's palace. He was educated among royalty, raised with privilege, given access to power. But he never forgot who he was or where he came from. He knew he was from the Banu Israel. He saw how his people were treated, enslaved, humiliated, worked to exhaustion, and it troubled him deeply. One day, he walked through the city and saw something that made everything inside him react at once. An Egyptian man was attacking one of the Banu Israel. The Israelite man called out to Musa for help. Musa intervened. He struck the Egyptian. intending only to push him away, and the man died. It was an accident, but the consequence was the same. Musa was immediately filled with regret. "This is from the work of Shaitan," he said. "My Lord, I have wronged myself, so forgive me." And Allah forgave him. But the next day, the same Israelite man was in another fight. He called out to Musa again, and this time, Musa approached with the intention to stop it. But the man, misunderstanding, accused Musa, "Do you want to kill me as you killed that man yesterday?" The secret was out. Word spread, and Pharaoh's men began searching for Musa. A man came running from across the city, a believer who wanted to warn him, "They are plotting to kill you. Leave. I am advising you sincerely." Musa left Egypt that night, alone, afraid, with nothing but the clothes on his back and his trust in Allah. "My Lord, save me from the wrongdoing people." He walked, through desert, through heat, through exhaustion that pushed him to his absolute limit. He had no destination. He had no plan. He had only the direction he was walking and the faith that Allah was guiding each step. He arrived eventually at a well in the land of Madyan. A crowd of men were watering their flocks, and standing apart from them, waiting, were two young women, unable to get to the water while the men were present. Musa, exhausted, hungry, a fugitive with nothing, walked over and asked what was wrong. They explained. He took their animals and watered them for the women without being asked anything in return. Then he sat in the shade and made one of the most honest prayers in the Quran. "My Lord, I am in need of whatever good you might send down to me." No lengthy supplication, no elaborate request, just complete, bare honesty with his Lord. "I have nothing. I need you." One of the women came back to him shortly after. Her father, an old righteous man, had sent her to invite Musa to their home as a gesture of gratitude. Musa stayed. He found safety, food, and shelter. The old man, recognizing the character of this young man, offered him one of his daughters in marriage in exchange for 8 years of work, or 10 if Musa chose. Musa agreed. He spent years in Madyan. He built a life, a family, a sense of stability. The fear and chaos of Egypt began to feel distant, but Allah was not finished with him. After fulfilling his years of work, Musa set out with his family. They were traveling when he noticed something in the distance, a fire on the side of a mountain. He told his family to wait. "I have seen a fire. Perhaps I can bring you news from there, or a burning torch so you may warm yourselves." He walked toward it alone, and then everything changed. A voice called to him from the right side of the valley, from a blessed spot, from within a tree. "O Musa, I am Allah, the Lord of all worlds." Musa stood still. "Remove your sandals. You are in the sacred valley of Tuwa." He removed them. "I have chosen you, so listen to what will be revealed." And then Allah spoke to Musa directly, not through an angel, not through a dream, not through inspiration, to the heart, directly, voice to soul, in a conversation that the Quran preserves for us across multiple chapters. Allah told him he was now a prophet. He was given 2 signs, his staff that transformed into a moving snake, and his hand that glowed with pure white light when drawn from his garment. And then came the mission. "Go to Pharaoh. He has transgressed." Musa felt the weight of it immediately. He was being sent back to the place he had fled from, to confront the most powerful tyrant on earth, to face the man who had wanted him dead. He made a prayer that has echoed across centuries. "My Lord, expand for me my chest, ease for me my task, and untie the knot from my tongue so they may understand my speech, and appoint for me a minister from my family, my brother Harun. Strengthen my back through him and let him share my task." Allah granted him everything he asked for. Musa and Harun returned to Egypt. They walked into Pharaoh's court, the same palace where Musa had grown up, and delivered the message clearly. "We are the messengers of the Lord of all worlds. Send the children of Israel with us." Pharaoh was unmoved. He looked at Musa and said, "Did we not raise you among us as a child? And you spent years of your life among us, and you did the deed you did." He was trying to use Musa's history against him, trying to reduce the messenger to the boy he once knew. Musa didn't flinch. He acknowledged what had happened without shame and directed the conversation back to what mattered. Pharaoh then asked, "And what is this Lord of all worlds you speak of?" Musa answered simply and powerfully, "The Lord of the heavens and the earth and everything between them, if you would be certain." Pharaoh laughed. He turned to his court and mocked, "Do you hear this?" But Musa continued, your Lord and the Lord of your ancient ancestors." The exchange grew more heated. Pharaoh threatened. He accused Musa of being a madman, a sorcerer, a liar. Musa presented his signs, the staff becoming a snake, the glowing hand. The court was shaken. Pharaoh, unable to dismiss what he had seen, accused him of sorcery and summoned the greatest magicians in Egypt to defeat him publicly. On the appointed day, the people gathered. Pharaoh's magicians came forward, the best in all of Egypt, experts in illusion and spectacle. They threw their ropes and staffs, and through their craft, they created the appearance of moving snakes. The crowd gasped, but then Musa threw his staff, and it became a real snake, not an illusion, not a trick, and it consumed everything the magicians had created. The magicians fell to the ground in prostration, not out of defeat, out of recognition. They were experts. They knew the difference between magic and something that came from beyond human capability. What they had just witnessed was not a trick, it was the truth. "We believe in the Lord of Musa and Harun," they declared. Pharaoh was furious. He threatened them with torture and death. They had embarrassed him publicly in front of all of Egypt on a day he had arranged to humiliate Musa. But the magicians, who moments ago had been Pharaoh's greatest weapon, looked at him calmly and said, "We will never prefer you over the clear signs that have come to us. Do what you are going to do. You can only decree for this worldly life." People who had spent their lives serving the most powerful man on earth were now willing to die rather than deny the truth they had just seen. That is what genuine recognition of truth does to a person. Pharaoh refused. He tightened his grip on the Banu Israel. He dismissed everything as elaborate sorcery. And so Allah sent signs, not just as miracles, but as warnings, as invitations for Pharaoh to reconsider before it was too late. Floods, locusts, lice, frogs, blood in the water. One after another, calamities struck Egypt while the children of Israel were untouched. Each time a plague struck, Pharaoh would send for Musa and make a promise. "Pray to your Lord to remove this from us, and we will believe and send the children of Israel with you." And each time the plague lifted, he broke his word. This happened again and again. The pattern was always the same: suffering, pleading, relief, then hardened hearts and broken promises. Allah told Musa, "Pharaoh will not believe." His transgression had reached the point where his heart had sealed itself. Finally, the command came. Musa was told to take the Banu Israel and leave Egypt at night before Pharaoh could react. Hundreds of thousands of people moving in darkness, silently, carrying everything they could. Years of slavery ending in a single night. But Pharaoh discovered what was happening. He assembled his army, his chariots, his soldiers, everything Egypt could mobilize, and gave chase. The Banu Israel moved as fast as they could, but ahead of them was the sea, the vast, impossible sea. They looked back. Pharaoh's army was visible on the horizon, closing the distance. The people panicked. "We will be overtaken." Musa stood at the water's edge and said something that has become one of the most powerful statements of faith ever recorded. "No, indeed with me is my Lord. He will guide me." Allah commanded Musa, "Strike the sea with your staff." He struck it. The water split. 12 paths opened through the sea, one for each tribe of the Banu Israel. The water stood on either side like towering walls. They walked across on dry ground. Pharaoh's army reached the edge and saw the open paths. And instead of stopping, instead of recognizing what was in front of him, Pharaoh rode in. The moment the last of the Banu Israel reached the other side, the waters collapsed. The army of Pharaoh, the man who had called himself a god, was swallowed by the sea. In his final moments, as the water closed around him, Pharaoh said, "I believe that there is no God except the one the children of Israel believe in. I am of those who submit." But it was too late. Allah responded, "Now, when you disobeyed before and were of the corrupters," and then something remarkable. Allah preserved Pharaoh's body so that he would become a sign for those who came after him, a reminder that power without humility ends in ruin. The Banu Israel were free. After generations of slavery, they stood on the other side of the sea with open land ahead of them. But freedom, it turns out, is its own kind of test. Allah provided for them in the desert. Manna and quail descended for them to eat. Shade covered them from the heat. Water flowed from rock when Musa struck it with his staff. Everything they needed was given, but the human heart is restless. They complained. They asked for more variety in their food. They grew impatient. Some even said they wished they were back in Egypt. Musa was called to the mountain, Mount Sinai, for 40 nights to receive the Torah, the revelation for his people. He left Harun in charge. In his absence, a man named Samiri crafted a golden calf and told the people this was their God. And a portion of the people, despite everything they had witnessed, despite the sea splitting before their eyes, worshipped it. When Musa came down from the mountain carrying the tablets of revelation and saw what had happened, his grief and anger were overwhelming. He confronted Harun, then dealt with Samiri, then turned back to his Lord with his people in repentance. The journey continued. For 40 years, the Banu Israel wandered in the desert, a generation being raised in freedom before they would be ready to enter the promised land. Musa led them through all of it, through complaint and ingratitude, through moments of faith and moments of failure, through the exhaustion of guiding a people who had been broken by slavery and were slowly, painfully learning what it meant to be free. Musa did not enter the promised land himself. He stood at its edge. He could see it, but Allah had decreed that his journey would end where it did, on the threshold, looking toward what his people would inherit. He died having fulfilled everything he was sent to do. He had stood before the most powerful tyrant in history and delivered the truth without flinching. He had led hundreds of thousands of people through the impossible. He had spoken directly to Allah and carried his words to humanity. He had done it all while being a man. Afraid sometimes, angry sometimes, heartbroken sometimes. He never pretended otherwise, and perhaps that is the most important part of his story. Because Musa shows us that being chosen by Allah doesn't mean being free of difficulty. It means being given the strength to carry it. The story of Musa is the story of every person who has ever felt like they were up against something too big. Every person who has stood at the edge of an impossible sea with an army behind them and had no choice but to trust. It is the story of a mother who let go of her child into a river and got him back. It is the story of a man who ran from everything and was sent back to face it. It is the story of a people who were broken and then made free, and who had to learn, slowly and painfully, what to do with that freedom. And at the center of all of it, the same truth that runs through every prophet's story. Allah does not abandon those who trust him, not in the river, not in the desert, not at the edge of the sea. He is always, always there.